So hey guys, welcome to part two of this small series of videos. I'm really hoping it's much smaller than the movie one that I just did, which I think was like 8 parts or something crazy like that. So kind of going off of more documentaries, TV shows, and documentary series I saw over the course of my recovery. We're going to start part two off with Loki season one that was on Disney Plus, and it's still on Disney Plus for those who haven't finished that yet or haven't seen it yet. Basically, the whole gist of the show is that Loki, during the events of Avengers Endgame, he disappeared for a couple seconds in one scene of the movie and quickly reappears back like moments later, I would even say. And we kind of find out what he was up to over the course of that disappearance in that one scene in Avengers Endgame, kind of what he was doing and how it kind of temporarily messed up the space time continuum and how it fixes it and how he gets involved with an organization that takes care of time travel and makes sure that there's no quote unquote variants, people who are interfering with the timeline in very severe ways that would kind of make it difficult to refix the timeline and things like that. So he gets involved with an organization that takes care of such things. And Owen Wilson from, numerous different comedies. I don't even have to go over films that he's been a part of just because he's been in so many films. He plays kind of the guy that takes care of Loki and kind of makes sure that he's on track and make sure that he's doing what he's doing with this. I think it's called the TVA or something like that. Really good show, and like I said, it is still on Disney Plus for those who haven't seen all the episodes for that yet. But for my positives and negatives of Loki season one, it really does show what Loki was up to during that small moment in Avengers Endgame and kind of what he was up to and how it messed up the timeline. And they have fun with things that he was doing and what he believes he is in certain scenes and kind of how he lives up to the God of Mischief name and how he moves forward and makes himself a better person and all this kind of stuff over the course of the show. And it's really interesting stuff. The show gets creative with its TVA organization and explores what exactly these timekeepers keep track of in our real-time timeline. What are some things that they consider kind of small and not very necessary to change? What are some things that are important enough to them where they have to go back in the timeline or forward in the timeline to make sure that certain things happen or don't happen? So the show kind of explores those kind of reasons and those kind of ideas and things like that. So I really like how the show gets creative with certain aspects of the show in that regard. Owen Wilson gets a lot to do on the show, and it's always a pleasure to see in Disney-related properties. He voiced Lightning McQueen in the Cars movies earlier. But really, you definitely get all the Owen Wilsons in this. There's even a scene where he's talking with Loki. He's like, you're the god of mischief, and I just don't see a lot of mischief going on here. So there's a lot of like Owen Wilsonisms like that throughout the show that are really fun to watch. But for my negatives of the show though, and kind of where this whole timekeepers things works in, and where it works and where it doesn't work, it's one of my negatives for the show is that I would have liked to have been interested in seeing what the TVA was up to throughout the course of the Marvel movies up to this point. What exactly were they working on before Avengers Endgame, after Iron Man 1, after Captain Marvel and all the stuff that's early on in the timeline? Where exactly was the TVA when Thanos did the snap in Avengers Infinity War? There's certain questions like that aren't as addressed as much as I would like them to be. Another big thing that I'm surprised they didn't do is if the TVA is important as they claim to be, how come they didn't just get rid of Thanos, make sure that all these characters didn't just disappear off the face of the earth randomly, that over 50% of the population got wiped out in the Marvel universe. There's certain questions like that where just like, where exactly was the TVA the whole time? Feels a little convenient that it's happening now in the show but never earlier in the other Marvel movies. That aspect of the show was a little disappointing. But some of the another negative I have with the show too is that there were some small drags every once in a while in certain episodes. So certain episodes like, okay, cool, I'm really invested. I like the pacing and stuff. Other episodes kind of had a hard time finding pacing problems and what exactly to do, what's good pacing and what's bad pacing. So I don't know if it's just director choices or what exactly happened behind the scenes, but certain episodes do drag a little bit. I also felt the last episode does set up season two a little bit too much. My issue with that is Loki originally was just out here to be a season one kind of a show, kind of like what WandaVision did, and I believe Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, might have just been a one season kind of show too. Because I think they're doing a Captain America 4 instead of a season 2 of that, I want to say. But the show does kind of set up season 2 a little too much. Yeah, you want to get people excited. Yeah, you want to, get people interested in a season 2 if you announce it like Marvel did. But I felt like it just kind of set up a little too much. And for a season finale, you don't want to set up more. You want to make sure you're paying off the fans, make sure that you're wrapping things up in case this is kind of the once and for all moment of the show. But it does set up season 2 a little too much. I thought that aspect of the show was a little annoying. And who knows when we are even going to get a season 2 of Loki? Who knows it's going to be 1 or 2 years from now, or even longer than that. But overall, I would give Loki a 9 out of 10. It's a really good show. I do look forward to season 2 when that eventually comes out. I highly recommend watching the show if you haven't watched it yet. So 9 out of 10 for me. The next show that I watched over the course of my recovery was the Larry Sanders Show. It's important to note here too, I just watched season 1. I watched a couple season 2 episodes, so I guess we'll kind of incorporate those criticisms here for that too. Anything that's beyond season 2, I'm probably not going to know about for the show yet. So we're just critiquing season 1 for the show, because I know there was quite a few seasons of the show back when this was around on HBO. Basically, the whole gist of the Larry Sanders Show is that there's a talk show late at night who's kind of in the vein of like a David Letterman or a Jimmy Fallon, and kind of like a Jimmy Kimmel as well, if you want to throw that in there too. And he's basically this late night talk show host, and basically what we follow him doing throughout the show is kind of all the behind the scenes stuff. We kind of see stuff that's going on in his personal life, things that are going on the show. All these people who kind of would want to incorporate more commercialism in the show and do like little skits for commercials and things like that. So basically, what's kind of interesting about the Larry Sanders Show is even though it's a fictional late night talk show, it shows you kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes. So like if you're watching David Letterman one night, or if you're watching Jimmy Kimmel one night, and you're just kind of like, oh, they're kind of off, or wonder why they're kind of frustrated about something, or wonder why that one skit about this one commercial was kind of awkward for them. The Larry Sanders Show kind of explores those things that sometimes happen in late night talk shows. And I want to even say Gary Shandling, who created the show and stars in the show as Larry Sanders, you can definitely tell Gary Shandling was interested in stuff that happens behind the scenes on these kind of shows. I think that I did see in an interview somewhere that was kind of something that interested in him in doing a show like this, because he had his own show for a little while before the Larry Sanders Show. But for my positives and negatives of it, it's very funny. It's always interesting how they do behind the scenes stuff. It definitely kind of feels like something you'd see in like The Office or Modern Family. It's definitely kind of that mockumentary, fake documentary kind of a feeling as far as how they filmed it went. So I like that approach for the behind the scenes stuff for the show. I also like how the show uses many different interesting scenarios of situations that can happen on shows like that, and how it sometimes happens in real life in shows like this. Like I said, whether it is personal drama or commercialism, or that one employee who's not behaving themselves, or somebody who's having an affair and how that incorporates itself into the show if they're involved with the show too. So there's things like that I think that the Larry Sanders Show really succeeds with and makes it an interesting show overall. But for one of my negatives of the show is some of the episodes do have a very slow pace to them, and certain episodes are actually longer than others. Like some episodes are almost close to an hour, other episodes are only like 23, 24 minutes. So it's kind of a weird show in the sense that certain episodes are going to be really long to get through, while others are really short to get through. Who knows if that was a creative thing or a budgeting thing or what that was behind the scenes, but certain episodes do have a kind of slow pace to them. So certain episodes were kind of hard to get through, while others basically zoom right by you and they're really interesting the whole time. But certain episodes do kind of are a little slow at times. Also, some of the ideas on the show work better than others because, like I said, there is affairs and drama and commercialism and clients and guest stars that want more attention than what Larry Sanders is willing to do for them and things like that. But yeah, like I said, some of them work better than others. Some of them are just kind of lame. Some of them are you're just kind of excited to move on to the next episode and hope that they find a better idea to work with. But maybe that's just a general thing with most shows. Certain ideas work, certain ideas don't. But overall, I'm going to give the Larry Sanders Show a 9 out of 10. It's very interesting. I can't wait to see what the other seasons bring me because, like I said, only saw season 1 all the way through. Currently getting through season 2 on HBO Max. Really interesting show. Highly recommend it. It gets a 9 out of 10 for me. The next thing I'm going to talk about is an HBO original 2-part documentary about the life of Tiger Woods and about his golf career, and about the many different troubles he's had over the course of his golf career and how it's kind of put his career in hiatus, how it brought him back, and how it brought him on hiatus again, and how it brought him back again. So it is a two-part documentary, like I said. I would say part one kind of covers more so his life and how he got into golf and how ever since he was a little kid he's been interested in golf and how his dad got him interested. Part two explores more like the troubling side of Tiger Woods, like his affairs, all the mistresses he had, how he kind of disappeared from golf, how he came back to golf, how he got in trouble again, how he came back again. So that's kind of what the documentary is structured as for the most part. So for this Tiger Woods documentary, simply titled Tiger, for my positives and negatives of it, there's tons of great home video and professional golf footage featuring both the professional and personal life of Tiger Woods. Very effective, and it really works on certain scenes. Some of the points brought up in certain interviews with certain people, like his colleagues and his friends and his mistresses, really do kind of come into effect in how he's feeling in certain situations. So whether it's just good timing or good editing as far as going through all the footage, seeing what they can use for Tiger Woods, there is some psychological things you can see going on with him as certain golf tours are happening that are kind of happening with the documentary as well. Another positive I had is that it's a fascinating documentary, even for non-golf viewers like myself. I'm not a huge golf person, but this documentary definitely made me more interested in it, so that's always a good sign of a good documentary. It's insightful information to learn about Tiger Woods, both good and bad information about him that I definitely would have not known about Tiger Woods until watching this documentary series. The documentary also exposed how damaging a life of a celebrity can be, how the mental and emotional toll it can have on a person, especially when fame gets to their head. There really is a lot of scenes where Tiger Woods really does look at himself as a god and thinks he can get away with certain things. And it really does psychologically show how damaging that was for him as far as the mistresses thing coming out, how that led to his divorce, how he kind of had to disappear. There's a lot of stuff that they explore here that I would have not known about Tiger Woods until watching this documentary. But for my negatives of Tiger, though, some of the hardcore and current or even former Tiger Woods fans might not learn as much stuff about Tiger Woods here. There's a lot of things here that might come off as old news to them. There's just a lot of stuff here that while you're watching is like, oh, I remember that, or oh, I remember this. So if you're a hardcore fan of Tiger Woods, if you have all his cards, if you collect all his merchandise, if you have all his video games, some of this stuff might be old news to you. But for people like me that really don't follow golf very much, it is pretty interesting to see all the stuff that was going on with Tiger Woods over the course of his career, both the good and the bad. Another negative I had, though, with the show is I thought more time could have been spent on kind of the slower times of Tiger Woods' life. There's certain jumps in this documentary that go from this certain year all the way to like 4 or 5 or sometimes 6 years later than that. And there's really no justification for the skips sometimes. Yeah, I understand there's slower years. There was some undisclosed content in some of those years for Tiger Woods. But there's really not a lot of justification for why the documentary skips as much as it does. I don't know if that really displays how much limitations they had as far as what kind of footage they had to work with. I don't know if that's a sign that some of those years are really, really slow for Tiger Woods and there really wasn't nothing to report in the documentary regarding those years. There's just a lot of things where, because golf was so huge for Tiger Woods, I really was curious to see what exactly, because there was times in this documentary where he was gone from the public for like 4 or 5 years, if not longer than that. I really would have liked to have seen kind of how he rebuilt his life and what he was doing and how he got the whole mistresses thing off of his back and how he got the media off of his back. And there's just a lot of things that I thought the documentary could have covered that it really would have been interesting to me, rather that is more interviews with Tiger Woods that are happening here. But there's certain things that I really would have liked to have been interested in. Like, what exactly was he doing when golf wasn't a part of his life? What was he doing when he couldn't play golf? What were some things he had to do when, like, what exactly did he have to do to get a private game to train for golf again? Like, there's a certain aspects like that that I thought really would have been interesting ideas to explore in this that unfortunately the documentary never does explore. But overall, I would give Tiger a 9 out of 10. It's a very interesting documentary. For those who specifically don't really know a lot about Tiger Woods, you'll definitely get more interested in golf after watching this. 9 out of 10 for me. It's a very well-made 2-part documentary. So I will be back for part 3 of this segment of the series, you guys, with more documentary shows and documentary series to talk about with you guys.